Shouldn't James hang up from this call?
Yes.
Okay, now are we leaving? We're Xing out of this?
Well,
What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's Korg Livestream. I am James, and I hope you are all safe and well. You asked for it, and today we want to deliver on Kronos. We're going to do a deep dive into the Kronos. We're going to explore sounds, capabilities. We're going to do a lot of real-time control. We're going to check out vector synthesis and all of the great technologies that come together in this awesome, awesome performance synth and workstation. So I'm just going to dive right in. And I'm going to be using this view a bit. You're going to see this screen. I just want to bring that up a little bigger for you so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to be working from this truly awesome set list mode. I think it's the best in the game. You get a lot of control here. Obviously, you can write notes so where you need them, and I've got a couple to help me on my way. You can color code things. What I've done here is I've color coded the engines to help remind me which engines we're actually looking at, and of course, I can color code my combinations versus my programs. I can even put a song in there. So we're doing all of that today. I'm going to jump right in with the first engine, the SGX2 engine, and we're going to check out the two pianos that come with the Kronos as standard. So jumping right into the program mode here, we've got the Kronos German Grand, and just give it a listen. Show you a little bit about how it's so easy to control these sounds with Kronos as well. So with any engine, you get this really, really cool top level view. So you can see right now, we've got this kind of like bar across the top that's showing a piano, but if you just touch that, you get into this very, very dedicated mode where you can see parameters of the piano, things that are specific to the piano. So right here, for example, I can bring down the lid and you'll hear the difference in the tonality. So a little brighter, a little darker. And this is what we do. With Kronos, all the engines are very dedicated to the sounds that you're producing with them, and we make sure that all of those parameters are right there at a touch. You don't have to do a lot of deep menu diving. A lot of other things you could do here are change the things like damper resonance. So you can increase that, you can increase the damper noise. So like, for example, the pedal noise, the mechanical noise. I could bring that all up pretty high for you, give you an idea. You can hear that stuff. You can even go in, so now I got a little bit of a noisier piano going on here. The other thing I want to show you about our piano engines is this. This is damper, this is a string resonance. So when you want to have a piano sample, you want to have that real feeling of being in a piano cabinet. And what happens is that certain keys resonate with other keys. And what we've done is we've captured that underneath the main samples of our German and our Japanese, and of course, all our other grands that we offer as options or in certain packages. We have this sympathetic string resonance, and you could actually see and hear the string resonance. So I'm going to turn it up pretty high, and then I'm going to play something here, and you're going to see that even though I'm playing an E-flat major down in the middle of the keyboard, there's sympathetic resonance going on. It's actually making those other strings vibrate. And that's what you hear in a real piano, and that's really one of the differences that bring a real realism to the Kronos pianos. It's really, really cool. And in addition to that, one of the other cool things is the, basically just the fact that you have this. So over here, you might see this light blinking. That means you're actually accessing the disc. So what that's saying is that you're getting these pianos directly from the disc. So these are very, very large, dedicated samples, full keys sample to the full decay in multiple velocity layers that you don't have to worry about waiting to load. So that's our commitment to creating awesome pianos. I want to move on, and I want to show you the Japanese grand. I'm going to do the dark grand. You can see the color change slightly. A little bit of a sharper attack, a little bit more bright. Here's a note. Try Karma Switch and 5. Okay, well, I'll do that. So this is a good opportunity to introduce one of our great technologies, which is Karma, which goes way beyond any arpeggiator or step sequencer. This dynamically changes MIDI over time. I'm going to turn this on, and you can see that we're going to hear some cool stuff happening. And then, move this over for a second. Cool. You have 8 different Karma scenes. Switch 5. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each program in the Kronos, regardless of what engine you're using, also has a drum track. So there's a lot going on in a program. So we have this drum track that's attached to every single program, and you can change them on the fly. You can dive in and you can change the drum pattern, the drum sound. It's all there under the hood, even on the programs. And here's a program. Here's a drum track that just comes up for this particular program. Also, what you just noticed is when I changed sounds, that piano didn't drop out. That's our smooth sound transition technology, which is awesome for live. I covered that with the SV2 as well. And here you can see it being used again. You can seamlessly transition from one sound to another, even another combination to the other. So there's a lot of processing power going on here that's making sure that you got a lot of seamless transitions, a lot of no hiccuping, no anything. And this is a combination of 2 different engines. So I want to show this to you. So yes, you can blend engines in the program mode. That means 2 different engines plus the drum track plus a ton of effects that I'll get into in a moment. But here we've got a Mod 7 engine, which I'll jump into in a moment, with the Jordan Rudess piano, Japanese. And you can hear these 2 things being worked together. So this is just a program. There's no performance here. There's no combination. This is all still just happening in the program mode. And then on top of that, we also make splitting and layering incredibly easy. So check this out. We got this quick split and layer button right here on the panel. And all you have to do, let's say I wanted to do a split. So I can take my layered sound, my layered program sound, do a quick split, and it's going to intelligently call up a bass. And if I really like what I've done here, I could just simply write it to a combination. Press write combination, and you could choose where to write it to, and then that's permanently yours. 1-step splitting, and also 1-step layering if we weren't using a sound, or even if you are, that has multiple things going on in the program, you can layer that easily too, because there's a quick layer and a quick split. Feel free to ask questions if you've just joined us. James with Korg, and we are going through the Korg Kronos today, checking out the engines, the power, the real-time control, all this great stuff that comes together in this mecca of a keyboard. Moving on to the next engine, out of the SGX and into the EP engine. Here you go. This is the EP1. And what you'll notice immediately is that the screen changes, because like I said, each engine is dedicated to the sounds that it produces. Now this is a little different. This is a physical modeling engine. So the sounds you're going to hear here are not based on samples. They're based on models of what the electric piano is, and they sound incredible. So. So once again, with one touch, you can jump right in and you can see everything that you would need to dramatically change the sound of your electric piano. The knobs all line up, so if I was going to go here and go into the tone adjust, I can see I could do my volume here, I could do my treble and bass, I could do my intensity and my switch on the vibrato. So I just put that on. You could also change the effects. So this actually operates a lot like a plugin in hardware. So it's just like clicking, and then you could choose what effect you want. So now I'm going to choose the phaser. I can shut this off here. You have full control of the effects down below. And if you want to go a little deeper, you can go in here to the engine and you can look at the basic oscillator. You're going to see things like attack noise, release level, hammer width. These are not synth specifications. These are things that are make the electric piano sound even more real. And what it does is it does a lot of stuff under the hood that equates to what you're seeing there. So the hammer width will change the overall hit, the attack level noise. How loud and noisy do you want your electric piano? If I turn this all up, the brightness. Back that down a little bit. Here's another example. This is the Reed electric piano. So this is the... I use the drum track on this one as well. Pretty cool. Third engine we're going to cover today is CX3. This is a rotary organ model. This is again based on modeling and super cool. Just happen to have the 9 drawbars here. I use them as drawbars. So we go into the tone adjust and you can see here, you can get a close-up of that. You can change your registrations just using these bars. So it's like having real drawbars on an organ. Really great feature. And again, this isn't a combination. This isn't like having like multiple versions of an organ on different registers. This is all still just happening in the program mode. We haven't even gotten into the combination mode yet. So it's a real demonstration of the capabilities and the power of the Kronos. So we could start down here and we could bring in our registration slowly. You could do it on the screen as well. It's full touch drag. Got your rotary switch here. You can see the speed switch right there, down and up. You could also assign that to a pedal, whatever you're comfortable with. You can do a switch. You can even do velocity. If you hold down the keys a little harder, you can make the speed switch happen. If you're just joining us, we're checking out the Kronos today. Thank you for joining us on our live stream. Hope you're all safe and well out there. I'm James with Korg, and we are just going through the engines on the Kronos, moving our way up into some other technologies we're going to be looking at. Next engine up is the Mod 7 engine. Now, this is an FM engine. This is a true FM engine. As a matter of fact, you can even take system exclusive from vintage synthesizers and put that in here, and it will read it. So here's a quick example of this engine, which is absolutely beautiful. And of course, what you would expect from a FM engine. real-time control here. A little bit of a cutoff here. I could also take that string out very quickly. See, this is a true 6 operator, as you would expect. FM engine, everything is completely patchable on the screen. You can mess around with changing the algorithms, or you could just, like I said, load in your own stuff. There's plenty of great FM sounds in here. Some vintage stuff is, of course, some new stuff as well. And that's a quick demonstration of the other engine. Here's one more. Next engine is super cool as well. This is our STR1 engine. This is our plucked string model, and this thing goes totally organic. Really, really deep, rich, organic sounds you can explore with the with the the vector synthesis. This knob right here, and we're gonna start by checking out this acoustic bass, and I'm just gonna riff a little bit. Has a much different timbre than any of the engines we've explored so far. And then with the vector, you're going to hear the sound dramatically change. We have a few more here. This is a bell, beautiful, rich, metallic bell that you can play around with as well. This is the sound with the vector zeroed out. The other cool thing I should mention right now that we're going through all these engines is that, there are synthesizers out there that may have a couple of engines on them. It's interesting because those engines have sort of like a dedicated polyphony, you'll find. So there might be like, 120 notes here, X notes here. The really interesting thing about Kronos that distinguishes it doesn't matter what engines you're using or how many of the engines you're using. The polyphony dynamically allocates, and that means that it's always listening for what's out front. And it's really intelligently kind of like pulling back on things that you may not be hearing if it does run into a polyphony wall, although it's very high. You get somewhere in the area of about 250 notes of total polyphony here. And then there are things you could do with the combination mode as well that'll let you set things to just be monophonic or 2 voices, where others can have full polyphony. So no matter how many engines you end up using in any context, be it in the program mode with the drums or in the combination mode, you really have total control, and you're not limited to hard polyphony limits per engine. It's not like 128 of this, 128 of that. It's all dynamically allocated, which is one of the strengths, especially when you're blending a lot of different sounds to create different feels and genres. Now here's another pluck string model. This is a finger bass. More harmonic on that side. A little bit softer down here. Just playing with the filter here a little bit. One last one from this engine. You must go from like a mandolin to just Next engine is AL1. This is our ultra-low aliasing analog modeling engine, and this goes all over the place. It's a very, very powerful analog modeling engine, and I picked a couple of examples here to just give you like a full breadth of what's going on here. You notice here that we have two instances of that going on. We can choose between how much of those instances we hear and pan them a little bit with vector. And here's another one. This is a stack bass. Nice punchy bass. Use Karma on this one. Change the Karma. This is one of my favorite engines personally. This is a model of one of our most classic synthesizers. This is the MS-20 engine. And what you're going to see here is very familiar if you've ever worked with an MS-20 or any of the legacy software before. This is a true model of an MS-20 built right into the Kronos. You have all the panels available to you right here. So everything you would expect to see on the panel of an MS-20, you've got. Of course, with that classic sound, and here it could also be polyphonic, which is very cool. Oh, that beautiful filter. And then, of course, as you would expect, there's the full patch bay, which is really cool. So you could just tap where you want to go, and then you could draw that to where you want it to go, and it will dramatically change the sound. You'll see a cable get drawn across, and so I just smoothed it out. that's not alone. We have one more model of one of our classic synthesizers in here as well. We've got the PolySix. So check this out. So here we go again. As I said before, if you're just joining us, one of the beautiful things about all these engines is aside for how beautiful they sound and how each one has its own interface, you really do get that true feel of what you need to do with each of these windows. So right here, you can see all of the parameters that you would see on the panel of PolySix. You can go in and change them. You could also use the Realtime editor to do tone adjustments. Or you can just go in here and touch. And of course with that, you could also blend them. So here's one that has both the MS-20 and the PolySix together. Again, as I mentioned before, if you're just joining us, you can blend these engines even just in a program mode. We're not even in the combination mode yet, which we haven't even scratched the surface of the capabilities of what you can do sonically here. And this is a gorgeous sound. I love this one. Oh, so I'm going to jump into here for a second because Thomas Brown has a great question. So, Thomas, in combi mode, when building a combination mode, how can you better control the polyphony to avoid note dropouts? That's a very good question. I'm going to jump out of what I'm doing right here, and I'm going to show that to you. So, in a combination mode, here's what we do. I've got this combination set up here, but what I'll do is I'm going to use this combination. I'll go ahead and do this. But I'm going to play it later, but I'm going to show you the screen. So look over to the right here on that blow up of the screen so you don't get the glare here. When you're in here, you've got basically timbre parameters, okay? And in the timbre parameters, you can choose what happens polyphonically. So oscillator. So if you go into this oscillator tab, you'll notice here it says maximum number of notes. That means that you can decide this timbre will only be monophonic. This timbre will be not. So here, I'll give you an example. There's multiple ways to do this. First of all, at the top, you can force the oscillator mode. So if it's a 2-oscillator program, you could choose which oscillator you want, which automatically cuts it in half. So you can do polyphonic, mono, or legato. Below that, you have oscillator select as well. So you can choose oscillator 1 and 2. So there's where you get your split. Portamento, you can choose that as well here, but we're going to skip that for a second. And the maximum number of notes. So check this out. If you know that you're only going to need a pad to have, let's say, 8 notes in total, and you want to make sure that it doesn't go over, but you don't want to lose that quality of playing if you're playing like some block chords, you would just choose that. So here, I'm limiting the polyphony of this track to 8 notes of polyphony. I could not limit this track. I can go in here and make this track monophonic. So what I'm doing is I'm actually pulling back on the polyphony where it makes the most sense. And depending, it doesn't matter what engine you're in or anything, whether it's HD1 or whatever, it's going to pull from that polyphony different. And then, of course, you could always check the performance meters, and you could see what's actually happening with the polyphony. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back here. And once again, you just go to timbre parameter and oscillator, and you have total control over how many voices of polyphony each part takes from 1 through 16. You could also cut just the oscillator 1, oscillator 2. So there's a few ways to go about doing it, and it all works out very well. I mean, I've used this board more than anyone in the whole collection live, and I've used these kinds of capabilities, and it's really, truly works. So I definitely invite you to check that out, and I hope I really answered your question. I'm going to jump back into it, and then if you're just joining us, I'm James with Korg. I hope you're all well out there, and we are going through the Kronos. We've gone through some engines. If you've missed the first part, don't worry. We're going to post this later for you to check out. And we're going to go back into our set list mode here that's got everything nicely organized. And we're going to go into the next engine, which is the HD1. So this is one of the engines that Thomas had mentioned. And the cool thing about this one is this is the engine that tends to come on other products, like just standard. This is like your PCM playback engine, your sample engine. And so this is everything else. Like you get all kinds of like sounds from this engine. It does some cool tricks as well. One of the really cool tricks that it does is, since you do have, let's for example, a 2-oscillator sound here, you can control how much of the timbre you want. So what we've done with the drums here is we have a dry recording. And then we have the mic, the room mic recording. And then you can blend them. So. You got it, Thomas. And then one more sound from the HD1 before we jump into the almighty combinations, and we'll look at some effects and some sampling, some other cool stuff like that. Here's one more that uses one more technology that I haven't completely touched on here, and that is wave sequencing. Yes, wave sequencing like Wave Sequencing 2.0 in the wave state, and here's a beautiful example of how wave sequencing can really, really just animate your sound. So this is a 2-oscillator HD1 based sound. Vector synthesis allows you to control what you hear. Now we're going to go into combinations. So combination mode in the Kronos is up to 16 parts, and you can just get crazy with it. So Thomas, talking about some polyphony stuff here. There's a lot of tracks going on here. I've set this accordingly to make sure that it plays as well as it possibly can. You don't hear any dropouts or anything like that. But we have a 9-part combination here that I created to be sort of like an orchestra, something very film scorey. And I'm going to vector in a piano there as well, because you could use vector as volume as well. So just, I mean, listen to this. Like, this is like huge. Going to my next combination. This is one I wrote to kind of like model a song that I was doing, back with the wedding band. It's kind of cool. I'm going to play a version of it, and you'll get it. You'll get it. So let's see here. So we're going to put this on top. Back to Thomas Brown. Is prayer a custom comedy? Yes. I wrote that myself. The song that we were covering there was Prayer by Celine Dion. It was a... Oh, I gotta remember now. That's what we did. I've got one more here in combination mode that kind of demonstrates the power of the combination mode. These combinations are all custom. I wrote these, so I wanted to share them with you guys today to demonstrate what you can do with Kronos. And I'm sure I've even not totally delved completely into what it can do. One more that's really cool. I mean, I think you're going to also, totally get where this is coming from, but just to show the power of the synthesizers working together and everything like that with the drum track and having multiple splits and layers and everything that you can do. I've got this going on. I want to take this opportunity to also jump into something else, which would be the effects section, because of course the sounds are one thing, but then how you finish them off and make them work together is a completely separate thing. Kronos has up to 16 effects at a time, plus a dedicated EQ per part up to 16 parts. So when you go in here, you can see each part has its own high, mid, and low EQ, which is really awesome. And then if you go into the effects section, we've got this kind of cool thing going on. So we've got three kinds of effects that are being used. We've got insert effects, which are the things that you would put on specific tracks. Things like compression, distortion, things that just really are for like one track. And then you can see here I've got like certain tracks routed to insert effect 1, which is a parametric EQ. I've got other tracks routed to insert effect 4, which is a tape echo and BPM. In addition to that, there are also master effects and final effects. So here, for example, are our master effects. These are the kinds of effects that you would put on an effects send on a mixer. So here I've got a stereo BPM delay, and that's matching my tempo, obviously, and then I've got our famous overb, which is like our best reverb. And I've got those returns set all the way up. Back in here, you can see how those are being routed. So you can see I've got these all the way turned up, and you can see where I've got those sends being used. I'm going to build an insert effect and master effect from scratch for you using a blank combination to show you how we basically build. So I'm just going to start with one sound, and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to keep a piano. Now I can choose to load in the insert effects from the program, or I could start on my own. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the insert effect. I'm going to show you how easy this is. So right now everything's automatically routed to insert effect 1. So let's say I want to get a chorus going there. So I'm going to scroll through, and I'm going to find my stereo harmonic chorus. So now part 1 is going to have a little bit of that chorus on it once I route it. If you want to get deeper into the editing of that, you just go in here and you can control things like the depth, everything you would expect to be able to control in an effect. So now the master effect. I'm going to turn on one of them. I'm going to use the overb. I'm going to turn that return up, the familiar thing, the return. And I'm going to go back in here to the insert effect, and I'm going to put the insert effect plus the master effect. So right here, I go here to the send. Since it is being routed through the insert effect, I can bring the send up. And if I want to change that, I can go in here, I can make it wetter, drier, all that kind of stuff. So once again, whoops, go in here, master effects 1. I'll turn up the wet dry. Okay, so now I've got an insert effect and a master effect being used on the piano. You can also route insert effects into insert effects. So if I want to, I can chain them. So now you see this little arrow pointing, which means I could add another effect. So if I want to get like really, really like, you know, tight and compressed, I could add a compressor to that. So now I've got the chorus and the compressor plus the reverb. There's the final effect. So if you go into here, you've got these effects that everything basically runs through. These are like your finalizing effects. These are your things like your limiters and things like that. I've used these a lot too to kind of like tame my sounds a little bit. You know, if one was louder than the other because I was using some like really dominant synths. You can go in here, you could add compressors, expanders, but really you're not limited to that. You could add any one of the effects from inside the Kronos here. You could even add a distortion if you wanted to, or an analog record, or a talking modulator. But, you know, most of the time you'll probably want to use something like a limiter or something like that just to kind of like smooth out your sound. And I'm really squashing that for the purpose of like demonstrating, but you can get obviously a little bit more tasteful with it. Hard Day, good question. Can you touch on adding and manipulating MIDI files from a jump drive and tweaking them using the tones on the Kronos engines? Yes, I can. I don't have that ready right now, but what you could do is if you do load them and you go into the disk mode here, you'll see that MIDI file. You can load that in. You want to use the type that's basically putting each one of the tracks on a different MIDI channel. When you go into the sequencer mode, you can go ahead and go into the tracks. So here in the sequencer mode, which is going to be my kind of coup de grace, there is a page where you can go and you can do the bank changes. I'm just trying to remember. You could also do track edit, and you can look here. So in track edit, you'll be able to go into the header, and you'll be able to see the MIDI event. You can go in and change the program to the program that you want on the track. So MIDI files are very rigid. They have a program change built into each track. But what you can do in the MIDI event editor, per track, you can change it to the sound that you want. You could choose the bank and the number. So as long as you know what that is from the program mode on each track, you can actually do that. And it'll be permanent. So if you try to just do it like changing it in the sequencer mode where you're seeing the sounds come up like here, it's not going to happen because once you press start, that MIDI file is going to rigidly change that program to what it thinks the general MIDI should be. But if you dive into the editor on that page that I just showed you, just change the program and it'll actually just be the first thing that happens when you press start. You may not even see it right away on the track, but once you press start, before it even starts to play notes, you're going to have that program change and it'll be exactly what you want. And then of course from there you could also add on your effects, so you could make it a lot more real, a lot more dynamic, using all the sounds and engines of the Kronos. So really super cool. I hope that answered your question. I wanted to jump into another very powerful mode of the Kronos, and that is going to be the sampling mode. So really, really nice, easy, powerful sampler here. I have my NTS1 that sort of shows up in like almost all of my live streams. If you're just joining us, I'm James with Korg, and we are going through the Kronos. We've gone through the engines, we've gone through program mode and how powerful it is in combination mode. We've done some real-time effects, we've done some real-time modulation, we've done some vector synthesis. We have done quite a bit. We've done some effect editing, we've even done some MIDI file stuff. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some sampling. So it's really this simple. You get into the sampling mode and you get to choose basically how many keys a sample goes over so you can map out. I got this defaulted to 1 key to show that you can just really easily do it. The first key that I'll be sampling is C2. So if I go here, I already got one on there, but I'm going to sample again. So I'm going to put together an arpeggiator here. Okay. And then you can see the amount coming in right there. And when you're ready to record, you just press start stop. So right now I got that set to 1 key, but if I wanted to map it out to go to more keys, and And that's how you build your map. So if you were sampling, for example, an instrument or whatever, and you wanted to have that really tight where each key was a different sample, you could just go ahead and make it one key. So right here it's C2, and then press create, and then what you're going to see here is that the next available key, which is C#2, is available for sampling. So if I change the wave and all that kind of stuff to show you, to demonstrate the difference between them, I'll just do something like this, and then I'll go, okay. And then once you've done all that, and by the way, there are a ton of editing capabilities in here. You can see each sample. You can snip the front, the back. You can normalize. You can time slice. You can stretch. Everything that you would expect. And they're just right here. And all you have to do to get to the sample that you want to edit is hold enter and hit the key. And it'll actually show you that key. Pretty awesome. From there, you can, once you're happy with what you've got as far as your sample map, all you have to do is come here and write multi-sample to program, which is convert multi-sample to program, and then you basically tell it where you want to write it to, and then it goes right into that program for you. That means that that program can then be run through the envelopes, it could be run through the effects, it could be run through anything, it could be put into a combination. So, I mean, you can't get easier than that when it comes to sampling, and I just really just wanted to take an opportunity to demonstrate that for you. We really do make everything easy. I mean, really the hardest part about this whole thing is fitting this all into an hour. And if you're just joining us, we're with the Kronos here. By popular demand, we're doing this Kronos live stream. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your questions. We really appreciate it. The last thing I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of like show this kind of like amalgamation of all of these great technologies together, and play you out with a little bit of a song that I had done. This is another song that I think that you'll know. So just to give you an idea of what's going on here in the sequencer is we've got a lot of splits and layers going on. We've got a lot of different engines going on, and we're putting it all together. So here I've got my bass. So, you know, no sleight of hand, no anything here. I've got samples of my, check this out. I've got samples of my piano. So, because it would be really, really difficult to play the top hand sound, the melody, or the riff while playing a chord and while playing bass. So what I've got here is I got these samples of my pianos, which I resampled from inside the Kronos. So I played and sampled them in. Okay, so no tricks here, no additional sequencing, no anything else like that. The only thing that's really sequenced and looped are the drums. So here we've got a AL1 bass. We've got a multi-sample in HD1 that I've created using piano chords inside the Kronos. Here I've got a regular German piano from the SGX2. And up here I've got a combination of a couple of other engines. And then we put those all together, you get something kind of nice like this. If we have any other questions out there, I would love to answer them. We do have a few minutes left to the hour, so if you've got any, throw them up in the feed. If you don't have any questions, still all good. You know, we could just wrap up. I really hope that you enjoyed what you've seen today about the Kronos. I hope that we've gotten to demonstrate some of the awesome power of what this keyboard can do, both for performance and production. Once again, if you've joined us late, we have everything from the engine overview to real-time editing to Karma drum track in the program mode. We've got putting engines together in there. We've got polyphony management. We've got everything. We've got sampling. We went through the sequencer mode here. We went through basically everything. So, I mean, it's really an awesome product. I really hope you guys enjoyed. By the way, I also did want to mention, because I wanted to make sure I mentioned this, but I went so fast from the SGX into the other engines. There is one other product that has the additional Italian piano that we just announced, and it is it's the Kronos TI. It looks kind of like this. So it's a limited edition color, akin to the Kronos Platinum, and then we've got the Italian Grand in there as well. So you get the German, the Japanese, and the Italian all built in, and that is available through select retailers now. And that is basically it. So once again, I would really like to thank you for joining us, for commenting, for liking, for sharing. We will post this again later, and I'll see you guys again soon. Until then, do stay safe and stay well, and thanks for joining us. I'm signing off now, and I'll see you again soon.